Scaling Up Nation, Trace Blackmore here with some mind-blowing news that'll make your job a whole lot easier. 3 industry titans, Masters Company, Radical Polymers, and MFG Chemical have joined forces to create your ultimate one-stop shop for your water treatment needs. We're talking over 60 years of Masters Company's expertise in private label products and cutting-edge test kits. Radical Polymers' game-changing Inisha additives, and MFG Chemical's custom manufacturing prowess. These American companies are bringing you top-notch quality and reliability all under one umbrella. From blending and ultra concentrates to specialized polymers and custom solutions, they've got you covered. And with multiple AWT Supplier of the Year awards between them, you know you're getting the best of the best. Ready to revolutionize your water treatment game? Head over to scalinguph2o.com/MFG. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/MFG. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And nation, what a world we live in. I remember, and I'm going to sound extremely old now, I remember when I wanted to learn something about our industry, I had to either go through my father's resources, or maybe I had to check out a book somewhere. Maybe I even had to look something up on microfiche. Does anybody even know what microfiche is anymore? It's very tiny fish. No, it was actually this film, and you would go to this monitor that would magnify this film, and basically you would spin it until you would find what you wanted. Normally they put periodicals and different things on that. I had a lot of trade journals that I remember were on microfiche. Oh my gosh, and I'm only 50 years old, folks. So imagine what some other people have seen in their lifetime. No, I've never used slide rules or anything like that. I've always had calculators and equations and things. But technology has changed, especially in the way that we go to find out new information. Now, I'm willing to bet probably by this time today, while you are listening to this podcast, at least once you have gone online to look something up. And most likely you have used YouTube to figure out how to do something. I had to replace something in my car not too long ago. And I remember when I was 16, I had no money when my car would break down, but I did have the will to fix a broken car. And I remember I went out and bought a Chilton Auto Guide. And this was a complete manual that had everything in your car, blow apart diagrams where you could take things apart and hopefully put them back together the way that you took them apart. And folks, I rebuilt an engine with this guide, and that's the technology that we had. Well, I'm willing to bet I can look at that model car. By the way, a 1983 Cavalier was my very first car. And like I said, I pretty much rebuilt the entire engine in that thing, and I did it with a manual. But I bet today I could put that car in, and I can probably find a ton of YouTube videos where people have taken the engine apart step by step and tell you how to do it. I did that just the other day. I didn't have a manual. I had a YouTube account, and I went in and I asked it how to replace a particular filter in the transmission, and it told me everything. Not only did it tell me, it gave me a video of somebody actually doing the work. And then when I actually went out to work on my son's car, I had actually done it before. I had all the visuals because I mentally did it with this person as they were doing the video. By the way, The best car videos out there are Chris Fix. I don't know if you guys watch him, but if you have anything you have to do with automotive, he is just fantastic. And if you haven't guessed, we're talking about things that you can do to help people learn about something that they need to do. And we're talking about YouTube today. Here's some interesting YouTube facts. So, over 2.7 billion active users on YouTube. There's 47 billion visitors per month to YouTube. Over a billion hours of content is consumed every single day, and 500 hours of uploaded content every single minute gets uploaded to YouTube. Now that adds up to 720,000 hours each and every day. It's a platform that you probably use on a regular basis, and maybe it's a platform that you've created content to. Maybe not. Well, we're going to talk to somebody today that found a niche that wasn't being fulfilled, and he used YouTube to do that very thing, to fill that niche and give his industry what it was needing. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is that interview. My lab partner today is Sean Powell, founder of the Wastewater Enthusiast YouTube channel. Sean, welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Thanks for having me, Trace.
Super excited about what we're talking about. And, so many people are using social media and I guess YouTube social media. And you're doing such a good job about that. And we're going to talk all about that today. But before we get there, do you mind telling the Scaling Up Nation a bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Sean Powell. I am the founder of the Wastewater Enthusiast YouTube channel, which is actually a side project that I've done this calendar year. I'm on my 11th month of that, helping operators get certified, actually helping engineers pass their PE exams, I'm learning. That was an unintended consequence. Vendors are watching, so they know, how to approach wastewater plants. I learned that. So it's been a really interesting thing to embark on with YouTube. But my primary role is the chief plant operator of the wastewater treatment plant in Avila Beach, California. I'm also the chief drinking water operator for the water system of the town. And that's pretty much how I would describe myself to my friends and family, as I'm a wastewater treatment plant operator. But for the sake of our context, I'm going to be talking mostly about the wastewater enthusiast.
Well, before we get there, I'm curious, what's a day in the life of a wastewater plant operator?
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky question because it can vary so much depending on plant size and what kind of processes you're doing. And my day-to-day changes day to day. So I would have, that could be sampling. I'm a pretty hands-on chief operator, so I could be out in the system doing things, process control or mechanical. I'm also a bit of a mechanic. So just yesterday I was opening up a volute on a centrifugal blower, doing an inspection. And then I could be at board meetings. I could be at clients meetings for regulatory stuff. I could be meeting with regulators. There's just a plethora of things involved. But a typical wastewater operator's day would probably be you do your rounds, you go around, make sure everything in the plant's looking good. You're checking SCADA. You're taking your reads on your chemical levels and what flow is looking like. And from there, you're going to either be putting out a fire or you're going to be working on a project of some kind to move the ball forward.
How large a plant is Avila Beach?
Avila Beach is a pretty small plant, actually. It's we're now up to 0.3 MGD, so very, very small. However, its complexity is to be noted. We have two biological processes running in parallel. One of those is a membrane bioreactor, and we also have a pretty complex chemical dosing system for our disinfection, where we have to understand not just chloramines, but also free available chlorine and how they interact with nitrite and things like that. So it's small, but it's very involved mechanically. And the drinking water system is the same way. It's small. We don't have a ton of flow, but we have to really be on our toes to make sure things are going well.
Now, what's a really bad day? You walk into the plant and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is going on.
So this actually happened last week, which is very interesting. I rolled into the plant and it was something that was starting to manifest over the course of a week or two. And I think the drop in food, in BOD coming into the plant because of lower flows in the shoulder season, as well as a cold snap, exacerbated a problem that was starting to creep up in the aeration basin of our membrane bioreactor. And I showed up and there was foam like a souffle coming up out of the one of the chambers. And so, I called another operator and was like, I need assistance. Let's get on this. And we did have a bit of cleanup, thankfully no violation, but it ended up eating up, majority of my day was cleaning up this foam and figuring out what exactly was going on and how we were going to remedy it. And here we are a week and a half later, we're a lot better than we were, but we're still fighting it. Because a thing in a wastewater process with biology is you don't just fix it. It's not like, oh, I hit the button and we're good. It's, I now have to not only diagnose the problem, but typically in activated sludge anyway, I have to wait at least one MCRT cycle, probably two, to actually see my adjustment take its full shape. And since I run a membrane bioreactor, my MCRT is somewhere around 15 days. So it could be a whole month before I actually see my changes truly manifest. So yeah, that would be a bad day at a wastewater treatment plant.
So you're getting different inflows of water every day, just depending on what people are flushing and sending to you. How difficult is it to keep up with all of that?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. There was, to your point, there was one day I showed up and my primary clarifier was turning white because a painting company poured it down the drain. And I was able to find that painting company and have a discussion with them about their error of their ways. It was, since the town's small, it's a little easier to keep up on. But yeah, there's equalization basins are there for a reason. And so I'm able to actually use parts of the plant to equalize flow if I think a shock load's coming in. But for the most part, everything is automated through set points on pumps. And there's, I've got this kind of flow coming in. The pumps will ramp up and down, based off what's coming in. But the constituents, we're always sampling. We're always testing. You're looking at pH and looking at BOD levels and how does it actually look as a profile coming in over a long period of time. And then the times where it's, potentially a shock load, that's why you have online sensors, right? You've got pH online and you've got dissolved oxygen online. Those are going to be my biggest tells that something is going on that is out of the ordinary, So yeah, it's funny. It's funny to try to explain it because it's become such second nature to me that I just want to say, well, I just look at the pH and DO, I look at the clarifier, but yeah, that's kind of, you get a feel for the plant. And I've often said this plant has almost become an extension of me. Like I understand it so well at this point that if something weird is going on in one of the processes, I just know where to look now.
So I'll allow you to do a public service announcement. What do you never want to see coming to you?
I don't want to see wipes. You knew I was going there. And I don't want to see fog canoes. No grease, please. So flushable wipes aren't flushable. Actually, okay, let me back up. This is a funny story. My first chief plant operator would go on a rant about flushable wipes. And he would say, flushable wipes are flushable. Because you know what else is flushable? Golf balls are flushable, but you don't flush them, do you? So yeah, it's kind of a funny little quip of his. So I use that actually in my outreach to the public to say there are tons of things like toothbrushes and toy trucks that my son would put down the toilet if he was able to that should not be in the toilet. And flushable wipes ranks among those. They are not designed for the system.
The county that I live in Georgia is Gwinnett County. They have a device called a muffin monster, and they say floss is that thing's nemesis.
Fibrous material. Yeah, it gums them up. I know the muffin monster can crush a 2x4, but it will get totally ragged up with these strands of things. It's the funniest thing. It's like the Achilles heel of the big, industrial crusher of things.
So all of these experiences, you decided to do a YouTube channel. How did that happen?
So throughout my career, I have seen a great chasm in this knowledge versus ability to do your job, right? So like what I mean by that is I go to these test prep classes that are free for the entry level. Now you got to pay top dollar to go to the ones that are for the more advanced classes, but you go to these free ones and they tell you what you're going to experience on the test. And it's almost the exact same thing that you saw in that test prep class. And that's great. So I passed my exam, but I still don't actually know what MLSS is. I don't actually know I've never seen activated sludge before because I was working in a trickling filter plant. So how am I supposed to actually know what this is? There's a great disconnect there. And so fast forward, I've been in the industry for about 15 years and I am a chief operator. I'm at the pretty much the pinnacle of my career heretofore. Low stress at my job. I love my job. It's a small plant, but I like the pace that I'm at. And I also have this job that is keeping my wife home with our kids. Like, she doesn't have to work. And I'm a high school educated guy. I never finished college. And it's something that I'm grateful for every day that I have this. And there was a desire to share it. And I had talked about these ideas with people. And a lot of people were like, no, you should go be a contract operator or a consultant, make more money. And I was like, well, I don't really need more money. I'd like more. Everybody wants more money, of course, but I don't need it. So how can I actually add value to an industry that's done so much for me? And it was to actually fix the operator shortage problem on the supply side, not the demand side. Because I could, of course, go operate or consult and make money, but I also didn't want another job. I wanted to be in complete control of whatever this project was going to be. So this is kind of, you're seeing how the idea is being born for a YouTube channel. So I was like, well, let me start maybe a training company where I can train people how to not only pass their tests, but understand what's actually going on in the plant. And then as this idea was taking shape, I was just getting really wrapped around the axle about what I would even charge for something like this. Like, I don't know. I'm a big free market guy, but I'm also not a businessman. So I don't know actually how to execute this. And I'm really busy in my personal life. I'm really busy with my family. I've got young kids. So I just was like, you know what? Before I do any of that, I think I need to test the idea. And the best testing ground for the idea is YouTube, because everybody knows about it. Let me actually see if this idea has any merit whatsoever. And if it does have merit, which I do know it does because I've seen a lot of the issues in our industry with training, am I the actual person to do it? Like, just because there's a need doesn't mean I'm the one that can fill it. So let me just go ahead and shoot some stuff out there and see if it gets any traction. But the missing piece on this whole idea was my plant. I needed a backdrop. I knew I needed something to give me credibility, because I've seen some of these other people that have attempted what I was going to do, and it just kind of falls a little flat when it's a PowerPoint presentation or just a guy in his room talking. It's helpful, but I felt like if I could bring that visual I was missing as a young operator to it, it would work. So I went to my boss and said, hey, I got a crazy idea. What if I did a YouTube channel, blah, 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 but here's the deal. I need the plant. I'm going to use it as my backdrop. He thought for a few seconds and said, I think it would be really good for the industry. You know how to pass the tests. You're a good operator. The one condition is you don't do it on the clock. That was the only condition. And I said, that's fair. And he said, well, I just don't want the board to see one of these videos and they think, oh, you're doing this on district time. I was like, no. It's totally separate. So that was the only condition. And that was the birth of the Wastewater Enthusiast. Was just, I honestly just throwing something against the wall to see if it would stick. And it didn't just stick. I got almost instant traction.
So 7 years ago, over 7 years ago, when I started this podcast, I had no idea how to start a podcast. So what do? You look at YouTube and somebody tells you on a video how to start a podcast. What did you do? How'd you learn how to do a YouTube channel?
By doing. And I think that would be the advice I would give anybody. You can watch all the gurus. You can watch all the tutorials, which they have their place, like how to use editing software. I mean, yeah, I would need to know where the button is for sure. But I mean, my intro to the channel, my very first video, I did probably 2 days worth of takes on that and threw them out and threw them out and threw them out and threw them out. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. And finally I would nail one. And then I would hear like a big truck go by the plant. And I was like, oh, come on. And so it was really frustrating. And this is going to actually be the theme of one of my next videos to my viewers. Is the title of it's going to be 0 to 1 is hard, 1 to 99 is easy. So what it was finding 0 to 1. Like, let me get my first win. Once I notch my first win, then I'm going to know what the recipe is at this point in time. Because, audience habits change, things change, the algorithm changes. So you kind of have to be a little bit on it. But I ended up just starting to do one video a week And that turned into 2 videos a week, and that turned into 3 videos a week. And I was talking about this with a collaborator, another guy who's got a YouTube channel, the other day. I didn't realize what I was doing was A/B testing. I was just doing stuff. I was just excited to put stuff on YouTube, and was even more jazzed that 10 people watched that. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know there was going to be 10 people that were even interested in this. And so I just started pumping out information and started to see patterns and see people are watching this kind of video more than that kind of video. And so I just started leaning into those videos that were more successful. And, it's like a sort of a stock market trading lingo. I dumped the losers and chased the winners, kind of a thing. And so just doing that, it bore out success. And the other thing I did was I put it out on LinkedIn, because I guess part of me didn't truly trust the algorithm to do its job. And so I went to LinkedIn on my professional network and said, hey, this is something I'm doing. And it caught instant traction there. And then so I used a little bit of a social media strategy, but that was after I built a little bit of confidence after my first couple videos.
So we're our own worst critics.
Yeah.
How did you get over that it didn't have to be perfect?
This, I think, is very important for anybody trying to create anything. You have to be okay with it completely going down in flames, and not getting traction at all. I was totally at peace with it. And I've said this on a few interviews I've been on, and I've said this on my channel, I think, before as well. If it never amounted to anything, I would fade back into obscurity because nobody knew who I was before. I would delete the channel, and I'd go back to enjoying my lunch break at the beach and putting on my pack and hiking down the Bob Jones Trail. That would be how I spent my lunch again. And I would stop this silly idea of doing YouTube. But that is exactly the opposite of what happened. There's a book I read. It was like kind of one of those self-help books. And in that book, the guy talked about ready, fire, aim is your approach, not ready, aim, fire. Like when you're putting in the iron sights on your rifle, for those of you who, my brother-in-law is a borderline professional target shooter. So I like this analogy. When you're dialing in your sights, you have to miss. Like you can't have the sights dialed in perfectly. You have to take a few shots. And so I went in understanding that. And I went in with a very low risk proposition, very little on the line, except for me looking like a fool, which I do that. If you just ask my wife, I do that almost on a daily basis. So I've just become comfortable with it. So anyway, I just decided to be okay with it failing. And it turned out to not fail. It was just, that was it.
During our initial correspondence, you used the term democratization of knowledge. Why did you use that term, and what does that mean to your channel?
So the democratization of knowledge, as I define it, is all knowledge open to everybody free of charge. It's not, everybody gets the little crumbles and then the really good stuff's reserved for those that can pay for it. I hated that as a young operator. When I was going for my grade 4, that was a paywall I kept bumping into when I tried to get that next level. And what I decided to do was scour the internet for individual topics. And I would find an article here or a blog there or a video here on the one particular thing I was searching for. And that was also part of the genesis of this YouTube channel was me, years ago being frustrated saying, why doesn't somebody just put this all in one place and give it away? This is ridiculous. Because part of my angst there was I don't own the science. I don't own it. So how is it that I can put a price on it? Certainly my time is worth something. So that's got to be a calculation in teaching. But why is it that we're giving away all the easy stuff and we're charging for the more advanced stuff? And maybe somebody who's listening to this can explain it to me, but it never really, from my vantage point, made a lot of sense. The other thing about the democratization of knowledge that I feel is broken in our system, and I think a lot of operators watching this or listening to this podcast will agree with me, is the older generation, and this isn't everybody, I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush, but there's gatekeepers in there that if you've worked in an old plant with an old timer, for whatever reason, they feel threatened, they feel ego or fear-based mentality. I don't exactly understand what it is, but they won't share corporate knowledge with the younger operators that are coming in. And it's like, well, why? To what end are you doing this? And just an anecdotal story that happened to me. I was working at a utility and I asked for maps of the water system. I need maps for this project. And the operator there said, we don't have any maps. And I said, well, that's okay. Well, why don't you have any maps? And he said, it's all up here. And he tapped his temple with his finger. And I was like, well, why is it all up there? And he said, well, they can't fire me. I know where everything is. And it was just like this really kind of quasi-paranoid mentality. He wasn't in a threatened position. He was an outstanding operator. I don't know why he thought like that, but he was part of that old guard. And so part of the YouTube channel was the thought behind starting it. If you look at Reddit, if you look at Discord, you go on these social media platforms where people are just begging for information because their leadership will not give it to them. I mean, how many operators, Trace, are there out there running plants that know so much more than I do? Why is it that a channel like mine can catch so much traction so fast? Is because nature abhors a vacuum and there's a need. So when I talk about the democratization of knowledge, I just am really against the gatekeeping of the good stuff and then not luring, that's a bad way to say it. I think it's got a real negative connotation, but kind of funneling people into a pricing model where it's like, oh, if you're grade 2 and you're trying to go for your grade 3, it's actually no longer free. You're going to have to pay $1,500 for this workshop that's a week long. And what you'll start seeing in that process is a divergence. The utilities that have means, big cities, bigger utilities will be able to pay to send their operators to these classes. Those people get certified. Underserved communities that do not have the means, they don't have the money to do these big classes because it's a gamble. If you send them to these classes, there's no guarantee they're actually going to pass. So I've just now lost a whole week of work from this operator. I'm out $1,500 plus whatever to send them there, and they still failed. And what ends up happening is, there's a divergence. That it's the tale as old as time. Those with the means get the knowledge. Those without it don't get it. And if you look at the pass rates for California specifically, the grade 3 is somewhere around 40%. The grades 4 and 5 is somewhere around 20% pass rate. And I was talking to a recruiter out of New Jersey a few weeks ago, and he told me this year alone, New Jersey, S4, the highest wastewater exam certificate, they've only had 2 passing grades the entire year, which was a shock to me. I was blown away by that. And so I don't want to say militant, but a little very spirited about giving it away. And that was not actually my initial aim. I told you the initial aim was I'm doing a little market research to see what can happen. And over the course of just a few weeks, interacting with viewers and seeing what's going on, I became less of I'm going to see if I've got an idea that works for a training idea to almost an activist to give the knowledge away.
I recently attended a panel discussion of different generations in our industry. So baby boomer was represented, somebody from Gen X, somebody from the millennial generation, and a Gen Zer. And it was very apparent that the baby boomer, you've got to earn your knowledge. I made all these mistakes and nobody told me what to do. I had to figure it out through hard knocks. So you do too. And a little bit the Gen Xers as well. But the millennials, the Gen Zers, it's like content is free. Hey, we know it. Let's just share it. What's your opinion on, we have all generations working within our industry. Do you think that's going to go away when the boomers retire? Do you think that information's just going to be available out there? Do you always think there's going to be a gatekeeper?
No, I don't think there's always going to be a gatekeeper. I think when the boomers and Gen X are gone, I think this is the new normal. I think what you're seeing with Reddit, YouTube, like I said, nature abhors a vacuum. And that story you just told about, the boomer saying you got to earn it. I saw on Reddit a guy lamenting that he's brand new OIT, operator in training, and his plant manager told him, you don't get an opinion on process. You don't get to weigh in on process until you've worked here for 2 years. And that was a little bit of an interesting way to approach it because I see the value in what the older guy was saying, the plant manager. I do. As a chief operator, you need to kind of see different conditions before you have a say in process control. However, I've also, as a chief operator and a trainer and somebody who's helped a lot of trainees get certified one-on-one that work under me, have an OIT in their first week walk in and go, hey, what does that do? And I go, I don't know. I don't know what that does. I've never looked at that. That's an interesting question. Let me back up a little bit. Fresh eyes are very important, especially fresh eyes that don't have habits. And so I do think that the boomers and Gen X, I understand that they had to do it. It was so hard for them, and I get that. But the new generation will have different challenges than they had. The new generation needs to start as a stronger baseline because guess what? I'm sorry, baby boomer, our effluent BOD is not 100 on our permit. It's like 10 or 5 or non-detect, depending on where you are. So you played by a different set of rules than we have to play by. What would be really nice is if we could start at the baseline and then build up into this more advanced treatment that we have today. So that would be my rebuttal for somebody that says that.
So you've helped so many people pass the exam and even people pass their PE exam. Can you share some stories with those?
Yeah, there's a lot. So, man, I think I'm up to 20 states hearing from viewers all over the place. So I'll try to rattle off a few that happened in the last couple weeks. Montana, Virginia, Florida, Connecticut, Montana, Colorado. I already said Montana, Colorado, California, of course, is my biggest viewership because that's where I'm based out of. Oregon, Washington, et cetera, et cetera. And then I've got one person who, it was such a surprise. She was an intern for an engineering firm, and we met at a meeting for a plant project we were doing here. And I connected with them on LinkedIn. All the engineers that were there, we went ahead and connected. And that's the last I thought of that intern. I didn't really think much about her. And then months later, on LinkedIn, I see that she passed her PE exam. I was like, oh, and I always give people the clap, if they did something, and that's cool, good for you. And I get a direct message, and she said, I want to thank you. Your videos really helped with my PE exam. And I was like, what? Really? I didn't realize that they were that helpful for that level. I'm an operator. And I always just kind of describe myself as this doofus running around with my camera. I just didn't think at that level it was helpful. So anyway, lots of people that have been banging their heads against the wall. And I'm going through my plant saying, this is actually how the process works. And I'll get comments saying, oh man, we get so many questions about trickling filters. I don't have a trickling filter. I don't know how they work. Thank you. That helped me on my test. And I think one of the most impactful success stories I had was just recently a gentleman from Tennessee, a guy named Ross. He reached out during the summertime and said, I'm going for my 4th try on my grade 4 Tennessee, which is their highest level. I'm really struggling to pass this test. So I sent him some material I already had. He's watching the videos, and he reaches out to me and says, Sean, I passed, and it was a great congratulations for him. It was a story I'm getting more and more from more and more emails, more and more comments. But this one was different because he said, hey, by the way, I have a sequencing batch reactor. If you're ever interested, I'd be open to doing a video with you about it. And that video published last week, on Monday of last week, on sequencing batch reactors. And he gave me video of his plant. And we did a 30-minute conversation about SBRs. And I was able to overlay video into the final edit. And I got so many comments from people on that, a lot of likes and a lot of shares. You can see these analytics in YouTube Studio. People loved it because that's such a strange process. It's not a very common process. And what I'm seeing in this community that's being built is I'm not just helping people pass their tests. I'm helping people understand the process, but then they want to give back and they want to see, hey, is there something I can do to help? And that is not that particular video, but previously in the summer, I launched a whole different segment where I'm interviewing operators and they're telling their stories. And so I've got people from all over the country at this point. I haven't interviewed anybody in any other countries yet, but telling their process through finding wastewater, becoming a wastewater treatment plant operator, and giving career advice and encouragement to those who are trying to break in. And another one I'm really excited about, we're filming on the 19th, December 19th, is a gentleman who is retiring from the Air Force. He's an OIT for a wastewater plant in Washington State. And it's going to be centered around wastewater as a second career and how the armed services actually helped him transition into wastewater treatment, which I'm really think is going to be a powerful video. And so what I'm doing now is pulling people from all walks of life and all age differences and educated and not post high school education, and letting them tell their stories. And it's been a very powerful segment.
Now you have access to the equipment at Avila Beach. Is one of your goals to have some of your viewers reach out to you and say, hey, I've got this other piece of equipment. Would you like to film that?
Yes, I do. And that was the SBR video was the start of that. And what I'm hoping, and we can talk about this a little later if you'd like, but this idea, even though I'm giving it out for free, has started to earn income for me. And we can talk about how that actually happened. But what I'm hoping, now that I'm seeing revenue being generated from this idea, by the way, at no cost to my viewers, I'd like to point that out. The cool thing about that is if it becomes enough, I could maybe in the shoulder seasons where it's really slow at the plant, we don't have any projects going, maybe take a couple days off work funded by this project and go to a different state or a different plant in my state and film there and do an on-site tour and talk to other operators physically there. Because Zoom's a little touchy, but the real goal there would be to physically be on site. And I think that would be really cool.
Several years ago, I want to say it was year 2 of the podcast, I could only do so much because it didn't have an income. And I actually gave a question to the audience and asked what they thought if I monetized this. And I really thought they were going to say, no, don't sell out. But everybody said, hey, no margin, no mission. What was your experience like? And what are you doing now?
Yeah, so kind of the same. I started this idea to test the market, like I said, and then it became a passion and an activist sort of thing to just give it away. And what I'm finding throughout my life, whenever you add value to people, money seems to follow in some way. And I don't really know how that works out, but it seems to be a law of some kind. If you focus on people first, you'll be rewarded. And so what happened with monetization was this idea actually monetized in its first month, not on YouTube, but through a co-chair of the Tri-State Seminar watching one of my videos, reaching out over LinkedIn and saying, we have workshops and we want you to teach math in Las Vegas at Tri-State in the summertime, which was a huge honor. And it was a really fun experience. And I did actually walk away from that experience with a little bit of money in my pocket after expenses were paid. And then a couple weeks after that gentleman reached out, another woman reached out who worked for a company called DKF Solutions Group. And she said, I've just launched this series on wastewater operations training, and we're looking for a trainer. And are you interested? And I signed a contract with them, just a 1099 sort of thing. And that's brought in a healthy second income for my family, where I do, one webinar every month or so. It's not every single month, and they pay very well. And we're all booked up for 2026. They wanted me back for the whole year. And so I've got something, I think the first 6 months of 2026, I've got something with them. And then that was one way I monetized. And I felt really comfortable with that because I wasn't asking my viewers for money. The other thing that happened, though, was come the end of this year, October timeframe, in Q4, I actually hit the threshold that YouTube requires for monetization. And that's YouTube monetization is 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours. I had hit 1,000 subscribers early on in the iteration of the channel, but the watch hours really lagged. And then all of a sudden they exploded. I mean, it was out of nowhere, and I don't know exactly why, but it did. The channel was really getting traction. And so I had originally said, I won't flip the switch. I won't flip the switch on monetization because I just felt weird about running ads. And then I learned YouTube was running them anyway. They don't need me to turn on monetization for them to make money off the ads. That's part of the agreement. And when I learned that, I said, oh, well, no, I'm going to take my slice of that. If you're making money, if Google's making money off of it, I'm going to turn it on. And I did. And it's been very interesting to watch actually how ad revenue works and how all that process is. With an analytical mind like myself, I really am interested in how it breaks down. So I went ahead and did a video for my viewers to tell them that I had monetized, feeling as though there might be a little backlash. I explained what I was doing, and then I kind of doubled down on that. During that video, I said, I'm actually going to launch memberships to the channel too. And no obligation, and sticking to my core value of making this educational content free and open to everybody. The memberships are not going to have anything in them you need for your exam. It's going to be more live streaming with the members and talking about things like I'm going to take pictures from my issue that I talked about early in the podcast with the foam. And I'm going to explain to those members what I did and what that day was like and how it's not something you really need to pass a test. It's just something fun. And I was surprised that I got any members, but now I've got 10 members. And I, made that announcement a couple of weeks ago. And it's been like, wow, okay. So what I'm learning is people actually want me to make money off this. And there are several comments that said, you deserve your cut. You're doing all this work. You're putting in all this effort. You should get paid. And so I didn't get one bad comment, 100% like rate on the video, and people even signed up for the membership. So I think, like you said, we're our own worst enemy, and I'm telling myself this narrative that I'm being greedy or taking advantage of people, and they don't feel that way at all.
I felt the exact same way. I felt like people thought I was going to be a sellout, or I was just in it for the money, not trying to get the information out there. But that was in my head. It wasn't in anybody else's. And we have improved so much. I guess it's been 5 years since we've been doing sponsors, and we would not be able to do the things that we do without our sponsors. Our sponsors are fantastic, and they allow us to grow and try new things and do new things and create more content. So, yeah, I'm so glad that we asked the listeners. I'm so glad that they told me what I needed to hear. And I watched the video that you just mentioned, and I thought that that was very well done. You laid it all out there. You said why you were doing this. So I just want to commend you for that. I really enjoyed that video.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now, how do you figure out what content you're going to film? So you just told me that you had a date coming up next month. How do you know you have that date coming up? How do you know you're going to film that? How do you know what you're going to film after that? What's your process for creating content?
Yeah, it's dynamic. So I've got a curriculum that is exam centric, right? So I've got a boilerplate flow chart. But in the midst of those, I've got different segments, right? So this person just got back to me on, I'm going to do an interview with them next week. So, okay, so I got to fit that in somewhere. Oh, we've got a holiday coming up. I don't know if people are going to watch on Christmas Day. So let me, plan on how I'm going to actually launch these videos. And then I've got stuff that goes boom. And those are the ones that I think people really like watching. Is I had an EQ pump, totally a catastrophic failure. A coupler, I don't know exactly what happened, but it's like the heads on the bolts sheared off and they flew everywhere. And I already had the rotating assembly pulled out of another pump and it was being rebuilt. So I lost my EQ pumps to pump to my membrane bioreactor. So what I did, I threw my GoPro on real fast and I had the presence of mind to do it. And I ran out there and I showed them how I was going to rig up an MQ pump so that I could get it into the EQ basin and pump to the MBR so I could feed the process. And I explained endogenous respiration and all the things that go through my mind. And that was a really harried video where it's like this really just happening in real time. So the process is very dynamic. Like I said, boilerplate, but then things happen. And then I've got other videos with the interview segments. And then I've got the comment section. And I really try to push member and viewer requests over everything else. So if somebody asks me, hey, can you do a video on nitrification? Say that. And I was planning on doing a video on trickling filters. The trickling filter video gets pushed and the nitrification video gets put in its place. So that's you just got to peek into my scary brain, how very, very all over the place I can be.
Earlier, we talked about the baby boomers, but we have so many of them that are going to retire in the next decade. How do we get the knowledge that's locked away inside their heads so we can continue to get better and operating our plants throughout the country and throughout the world?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, how do we get information from people who are unwilling or unable to share that information? And I think one of the things you can do, if you can figure out where that gatekeeping is coming from, you can unlock it. And I've got a colleague, and I'm sure you know who this is, Joseph Blackman. He is doing a really cool project with his company where they're going through and filming SOPs on QR codes throughout the plant. And I think if you're able to take an approach like that and maybe have that guy explain, and he's on the video and he can be the star for a little while, I think that may be one way to do it. Because I do wonder out loud to you right now in this moment, how much ego plays into the gatekeeping of knowledge with these people and pride. And if we can couch it as you can do one last thing for your plant. And I use Joseph's idea as just an example. I mean, what if we can have you give trainings and have you be the center of this, and you can build the SOPs for the plant. Maybe find a way to get them to share it. But it's tough. If you've got a grouchy person that doesn't want to share it, it might be a little harder, and you have to start from scratch. And that's where you're going to have master planning coming in. You're going to need to probably bring a firm in to do a wastewater master plan or an O&M manual. And how it's been for me, to be quite honest, in the last 3 plants I've been at, I was brought in because there was a problem. And nobody taught me anything except for colleagues that I was collaborating with that were helping me in the problem solving process. The person that was here before me at the last few plants, that was there before me, I should say, left me with a pun intended poopy diaper that I had to deal with. And I was like, okay, well, I've got to start from scratch. I've got to observe. And to be honest, it's probably why I'm so good at what I do and why I'm able to do a YouTube channel. I'm very grateful for those problems, but that's not going to be everybody. Not everybody's going to run at the problem like that. So I don't have a great answer for you, but if it turns out that people won't share, you will need to start from scratch, unfortunately.
I've been very successful in asking people to mentor me throughout my career. I know that's just one person teaching one person, but then of course you can do a podcast or a YouTube channel with that knowledge. Maybe that helps with the pride aspect, but there's just so much information that we're getting ready to lose. I hope that a lot of people are listening to this podcast and watching your YouTube channel and thinking, okay, the information doesn't have to leave with me. I can create a legacy with what I've learned, and that can be a foundation of somebody improving a lifetime of my knowledge. I really hope that's the outcome of our conversation.
I think that would be great, Trace. And I don't mean to disparage anybody or make it be a negative connotation when I say pride is at the core of it, but maybe some soul searching would be there if somebody's listening and say, why is it that I won't share? And just ask yourself that question, because it's not helping anybody. It's not even helping you in that moment if you're not willing to share.
Another question I want to ask you is there's several people listening. They have not taken an exam in a very long time. What advice do you have for them?
Oh, oof. I've done like multiple videos on this. So let me see if I can be succinct. First and foremost, when you are approaching an exam, you need as much runway as possible, especially if you've not taken one in a long time. At my level, and I'm not saying this in a braggartly way, I've never failed a certification exam, and I've taken now 9 California exams, okay? So I, at my level, don't take them lightly, and I at least start 6 months before my test date. I actually don't apply for the exam until I feel like I'm ready to take it if I were to have to take it that day. And then I even push for a few more months to get really ready to go. And another thing I know about myself is that I get test anxiety. And at my level, with my track record, I sit down and my heart's going a million miles a minute, and I almost am hyperventilating. It's weird. I'm totally fine until I sit in that chair, and all of a sudden it's like it's on the line right now. The best thing you can do in that moment is breathe and just move through the exam the best way you can, and quiet your mind if you can. So that would be if you're sitting for the test. When you are studying for these tests, especially operator exams, they're going to give you, and by they, I'm talking about the certifying body, will give you a need to know criteria, and they're going to give you study resources. Use those study resources as primary. And then when you're approaching a question, and this is, again, a reason my channel is so successful, these manuals are pretty dense and they're pretty heady. And it's like, oh, some people do just fine with them. Others, like me, read it and go, I have no idea what I'm reading. Let me see if I can go on YouTube and find what this looks like. So you can come to my channel, or you can come like my buddy Matt in Georgia, actually, with the Operator Mindset YouTube channel. He's just started one. You've got California Wastewater, which is math. That's all pretty much dedicated to math with Christian over there. And you've got all these other creators that are starting to do this. I say use our channels and use our material as secondary study resources to clarify a concept, like if you're just not getting it. But really what you need to do is follow the rules that they're giving you, because especially for the wastewater exams, a lot of those questions are pulled directly out of the text. And so if you're wondering what it's going to be like and how it's going to be worded, you need to use those manuals. And then when you're taking the test, I did a whole video on this. There's strategies. I mean, test taking is a skill. standardized testing is kind of a necessary evil of our society. I do wish that it was more practical. Like, put me in a plant and I'll show you how I'm going to operate that plant. I would never have test anxiety. But actually not being able to anticipate how they're going to word the question. My wife's a physical therapist, right? So she's got her doctorate and all these things. And she even told me for her certification exam for physical therapy, sometimes, not for the whole thing, but sometimes she had to sit there and go, what do they want me to say? And that's part of the challenge in some of these operator exams is, well, I know what I would say, but is that what they think I should say? Or, so it can be a little bit of a head game. So best strategy, front to back, do your exam and go for the low hanging fruit. Just easy questions first. Don't get hung up. These are timed exams. Do not get hung up on that one question that might, give you a run for your money, because the other way these tests are written, this happened to me on every single exam. I just took my grade 5 in September. It 100% happened on that exam. I was a little fuzzy on one of the questions they were asking. I just moved on. And about 10 questions later, they answered that question in another question and how they actually phrased this question. I was like, oh, okay, that was cool. So I went back and answered the question. So I saved myself valuable time where I wasn't sitting there pouring, and valuable brain power too. I mean, your tank's only so full. So these are just a couple little tips I can give. And I've got, like I said, several study videos on my channel where you can actually listen to my whole thought process on taking exams.
Sean, what would you say the most common mistake people make on certification exams?
Not reading the question completely and thoroughly, because there are hidden gems in those questions. A common one is you have 2 trickling filters that are this diameter and you're doing a math problem, but they don't put the symbol for the number 2. They write the number 2 out. And so we are trained to pull the numbers out to solve the math equation real fast. But if you didn't slow down and see that they're talking about 2 of them, and I guarantee you the wrong answer for one of them is going to be one of the multiple choices, you don't know to multiply your surface area by 2. This is a common one. Another one, and this happened to me on my grade 5, they gave me a F to M ratio range, and I didn't slow down long enough to actually understand what they were asking. And the wrong answer was, of course, in the multiple choice. And I ended up, because the answer to that question was the preceding beginning of the next question they were going to ask me, I missed 2 questions because of that. And it didn't dawn on me until I'd left the exam. And I was just kind of thinking about it. And I went, wait a second, I did it backwards. And I texted 2 friends who had recently taken their 5, and they were like, oh yeah, I remember that one. I got that one too, and I'm pretty sure I got it wrong. And another friend said, I actually went back and corrected it. All 3 of us, grade 5 operators, we all fell for the same trap. So I would just recommend you slow down and read the questions thoroughly.
If you would, give us a plug if somebody wants to check out your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're looking for anything for wastewater treatment, process control, math, exam prep. I'm live streaming exam prep now. I've got expert interviews, mechanical, we're pulling pumps or deragging them. I'm measuring motors. You want any of that, come on by, and I've got playlists. I've got free-form videos, shorts. I have fun with the short-form content now. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Check out the Wastewater Enthusiast.
We'll be sure to have a link on our show notes page. And really well done. I really enjoyed watching some of the videos. You do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, not quite done yet. I've got some lightning round questions for you if you're ready for those.
Let's do it.
If you could go back to your very first day and talk to your former self as a chief operator, what advice would you give yourself?
Push harder, go deeper. My trajectory, I'm very happy with. I'm very happy with how things shook out for me, decisions I made, and I'm right in life where I think I should be. So I wouldn't change the career decisions I made, but one thing I would change is how deep I took my understanding at that time in my career. Don't listen to the people who tell you you don't need that certification. As a great example, I had a colleague when I was going for my D3, and he said, "You're never going to need your D3. Like, why are you going for your D3?" And I said, "Well, I want it. Like, I'm qualified. I've checked all the boxes. Why wouldn't I level up?" "Well, because if you're going to work here, you're never going to need it." And I was like, "Well, that's kind of a obtuse way to think, but there's no guarantee I'm always going to work here." So I went ahead and got my D3. Never used it until probably 7 years later, I was working for a contract operator, and the city of Greenfield, about 2 hours up the road, needed a D3 to be the chief operator for their distribution system. And so my company called me and said, do you want it? And I was like, sure. And there's my D3. I was able to use it, and I learned a lot in that role. So you never know what the next step is going to be. So don't listen to the people that are trying to keep you at their level, because they don't want to see you move faster. So I would tell my younger self, ignore anybody who is trying to hold you back and just go deeper.
Sean, what are some of your favorite wastewater resources?
I'll start with the informal, which would be YouTube and podcasts. So I would love to plug a buddy, Operator Mindset out of Georgia. I've already mentioned him once, Matt. He and I have become good friends. His channel launched a few months after mine did, and we're like good friends. We talk almost once a week on the phone now, and we're texting several times a week, and we've even done a collaboration together. And so I've just see what he's doing over there with his channel, and it's top notch. So I would recommend people go check out Operator Mindset. Check out California Wastewater. That's Christian Williams. He's a grade 5, hopefully soon T5 drinking water operator in California. That's pretty rare to have those qualifications. But his videos, I mean, they got like hundreds of thousands of views from all the wastewater math prep. Roy CEU is another one, royceu.com. Loads of practice tests. Oh, one last informal, Ron Triger. If you've never heard of Ron Triger, his last name is spelled Trygar. He is out of the University of Gainesville Trios Center. His videos are on Vimeo. You will not find him on YouTube, and they're all free. And his process control videos are gold. Like, they're long. I don't think they're dry because I love this stuff, but they're very, very technical. And if you are studying for a test, I highly recommend you listen, especially as activated sludge and anaerobic digestion videos are just absolute gold. And then in terms of the formal, obviously the Office of Water Programs, California State University, Sacramento, which is still, I believe, the industry standard of wastewater treatment. There are volumes 1 and 2. They've got advanced treatment. And then Water Environment Federation is also a big one. Their material is becoming standard, if it not already is. I might be misspeaking there because I'm not as familiar with how WEF plays into the exams, but I know WPI is starting to use a lot of their material in building exams. So their liquid fundamentals course is top notch. And I could go on and on, but yeah, we'll stop there. And then for just one more podcast for those of you who are doing drinking water. We're mostly talking about wastewater. Check out the Water Sifu. He's a kind of an industry name. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Trace, but he was probably the pioneer.
Yeah, he started well before me.
Yeah. I think his podcast is the genesis of people like Christian Williams, who's also become a great friend on California Wastewater, doing his. And if Christian hadn't done his, I probably wouldn't have done mine. So there's always needs to be somebody that takes that first step. And Ty, I want to say his name's Ty Whitman. Really, really great podcast.
We'll make sure to have all those links on our show notes pages. So don't worry about taking notes while you're driving. We'll have all those notes for you. Sean, when they decide to make a movie about your life, who do you want playing Sean Powell?
John Krasinski.
That was exactly what I was going to say.
Really?
Yes.
Why? I'm curious why.
Well, actually, I think you look a little like him, and I don't know. You have a Jack Ryan kind of thing about you.
So long as I've got a Jack Ryan and not a Jim Halpert, that's what's most important to me. So actually, the reason I actually thought about this for a while, who would play me in a movie? And the reason I went with John Krasinski is in his movie Away We Go with Maya Rudolph. At that point in my life, he and I looked like brothers because I had the hipster dark rim glasses and longer hair and a bushy beard. And I got several friends who watched the movie, send me a picture of him and say, he looks just like you. And then anyway, I've recently seen him in things like, Jack Ryan and A Quiet Place. And I'm like, well, he's more handsome than me, but I would really like if John Krasinski would memorialize me in a movie. That'd be great.
I think it's a great choice. Now, I was disappointed. I'm a huge Tom Clancy fan. And when he was cast to play that, I was unsure, but he knocked it out of the park. He did a great job.
I haven't actually seen it. Jack Ryan.
Do yourself a favor. You will enjoy it.
Okay. All right. Great.
Final question. You now have the ability to talk to anybody throughout history. Who would it be with and why?
There's a lot of answers to this question based on the context. And I would say, for the context of what we are discussing, I would really have loved to be a fly on the wall in the rooms when they were drafting the legislation of the Clean Water Act and see what the sense of urgency was. Like, what was the temperature in the room? The 1940s law, the Water Pollution Control Act, was it wasn't really that much of a, it didn't have a lot of teeth. So what was going on in those rooms when they formed the EPA and they formed all these things? And was there concern of overreach, or was there concern of underreach? Like, are we doing enough? Like, I would have just really have loved to be there when those policymakers were crafting this legislation that was going to alter a lot of our lives and really make such an impact. I don't think in this day and age we truly appreciate what that law has done for environmental protection, human health, and a lot of our careers, to be honest.
Sean Powell, the Wastewater Enthusiast. Check out his YouTube channel. We'll be sure to have all the links on our show notes page. Sean, thanks for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Thank you so much, Trace.
Scaling Up Nation, that was a fun interview. I'm just so impressed when people find something that they think should be done a different or better way, and they go out there and they do that. And so many people are using YouTube to do that. I really enjoy cooking shows. And one of my favorite YouTube channels is Nick DiGiovanni. He was actually on Master Chef. He was, I think, the third in line. He wasn't Master Chef, but I think he made number 3. Well, he went from there and started his own cooking channel. And I heard him talking about all of the things that people that work for, like the Cooking Network, and I think it's Food Network actually, and all the things that they have to do. Well, YouTube takes all of those barriers out of the way, and he created his own channel. And I actually looked up, he really makes some money on this channel. He has to. Some of his videos cost over $100,000. But that's all because of this amazing platform that really levels how do we get the information out of our head? How do we get it to other people? And we don't need a big studio or network to put it on for us. So I just think it's so cool what Sean and so many people are doing on YouTube. Now, we're going to have a link, and of course, you can go to the Wastewater Enthusiast YouTube channel. Now, we'll be sure to have all of that listed on our show notes page to make it very easy for you to check that out. He really does some interesting videos. He shows that even a small plant can be extremely complex. And he launched Wastewater Enthusiast to fill the gap early in his career where he was looking for training and test prep that just didn't exist, or it didn't exist in the way that he knew it could exist. So rather than just walking away from that idea, rather than just saying somebody needs to do something, he did something. So by utilizing the systems that he has in his plants, and he's even borrowing systems in other plants, he's educating the entire world. And I just think that that is cool. There is so much information out there that if we can get the base information out there, imagine how much better our industry would be. Now, I know for a fact there are a lot of listeners, members of the Scaling Up Nation, that have YouTube channels because you've sent them to me. And I just think that that is awesome. There's so many people that are trying to get information about our industry, or maybe it's a hobby or something that you do. I just think it is amazing that we have such an easy platform to use. It levels the playing field, and we are able to educate the entire world. So thank you, Sean. Thank you for all the people that are putting information out there. It's information which is going to make this industry better. Now, something else that will make this industry better is some of the events that are coming up in our not so distant future. All right, one of the events you might want to have on your radar is the 20th International Water Association Leading Edge Conference on Water and Wastewater Technologies. This is taking place June 1st through 5th in Houston, Texas. And this is all about bringing together global leaders in research, technology, and innovation to shape the future of sustainable water and wastewater solutions. If this sounds interesting to you, we're going to have more information on our events page. You can get there by simply going to scalinguph2o.com and navigating over to our events page, where you'll not only find this, you will also find everything that we know that is going on in our industry. The 6th Annual Oilfield Water Markets Conference is taking place May 5th through 6th. And this is all taking place in Irving, Texas. And this is where people gather to discuss critical action items all over the United States, including business model evolution, competitive landscape, capital, regulations, infrastructure trends, and future risks and opportunities. We're going to have all the information that you're going to need to register on our events page. We also have a 15% off discount code for registration by simply entering Scaling Up 15 when you go to register for this conference. Thank you so much for doing that and giving that to our Scaling Up members. Of course, we're going to have all that information for you on scalinguph2o.com, going over to our events page. And then finally, March 31st through April 2nd, the 2026 American Boiler Manufacturers Boiler Expo is taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. And this is a great town. This is a great conference, and we're going to have all the information that you're going to need to know so you can go to any and all of these conferences by going to scalinguph2o.com, going over to our events page. Well, Nation, I know you thought I forgot, but I didn't forget. Here's our friend James McDonald with a brand new Words of Water.
Hello and welcome to Words of Water with James, the industrial water game show where I give you the definition and you get to guess the word or phrase being defined. Will you rise to the top or get blown down to try your luck another day? There's only one way to find out on Words of Water with James. Today's definition is a flexible one-way item installed on the feed end of a spiral-wound reverse osmosis membrane element. Its job is to force all incoming feed water to flow through the membrane's feed channel rather than bypassing around the outside of the element. Can you guess the word or phrase? The answer is brine seal. Okay, for those who got it correct, step to the right. For those who got it wrong, please step to the left. It's springtime, so hopefully the water's getting a little warmer. I'm James McDonald, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Words of Water with James.
Well, thank you, James. And Nation, thanks to all of you. Thank you for making this the highest rated podcast in the industrial water treatment industry. We get new Scaling Up H2O listeners each and every day, and that's from people like you, listeners of this podcast that we call the Scaling Up Nation, telling other industrial water treaters that we have a podcast out there that's just for us. I want to thank you for spreading the word. I want to thank you for listening to this episode. And I want to let you know, as always, we will have a brand new episode for you next week. Until then, take care, folks. What could 100,000 hours of water treatment sales experience do for your next sales meeting? Lauren Real turns a career of top-ranked performance into practical training and talks that help your team win more business and keep the accounts they already have. Blending game theory concepts with Harvard and Princeton-backed research, Lauren doesn't bring hype, he brings sales conversations that water treaters understand and can actually use. He works with water treatment companies to train sales teams, lead interactive workshops, and speak at business and sales meetings focused on growing new revenue and strengthening customer relationships. If you want your next meeting to spark real ideas and follow-up, visit scalinguph2o.com/Real Water and see how Lauren Real can help your sales team sell more on purpose. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/Real Water. Real sales training, real sales motivation, and real sales experience. That's Real Water.